So the way we do it works well because it doesn't require us to personally be hands-on with the property. So Monique and I got started investing in 1999, but we didn't start lending actively, being a private lender for other people's real estate deals until about 2021-ish. We started really focusing on the lending side. So if you're a rehabber and you're going to buy a property and fix it up and sell it, that you might, at least the first few, you might want to do while you're in country. But once you've got a repeatable system for getting that done, maybe you've got general contractors that are on the ground that can get stuff done. There's really no need for you to physically be there to see the house, as long as somebody on your team can see it, as long as someone on your team is managing the work of the contractors, then there's really no need for you to physically be where the property is. We have bought and sold properties that we never saw ever.
If you've ever wondered how real estate investors actually build their businesses, not just the wins, but the setbacks, the pivots, and the lessons in between, you're in the right place. Welcome to Let's Talk Real Estate Investing, where we have honest conversations about what works, what fails, and what you need to know before your next move. Hi, I'm Debbie Balfour, real estate investor and investor success coach. I help real estate investors fund their deals through a relationship-first approach by building a pipeline of qualified investors who are ready to say yes to your next opportunity. Each week, I sit down with investors and industry professionals to unpack their journeys, key turning points, and practical strategies that you can apply right away. So let's talk real estate investing. He built a $6 million real estate investing portfolio, lost everything, and now runs his business from countries around the world while raising millions in funding. And here's the part most people don't understand. He's not tied to a city. He's not behind a desk. In fact, he's on a rooftop right now, and he's still buying, selling, and funding real estate deals from anywhere in the world. So, what if you didn't have to choose between building a real estate investing portfolio and living the life you actually want? What if you could travel internationally and still grow a fully funded real estate business? And my guest today doesn't just talk about this, he's lived it. Today, we're talking about how to travel the world as a real estate digital nomad and how to build, fund, and scale your deals from anywhere. Mitch Messer started investing in 1999 and by 2006 had built a rental portfolio valued at over $6 million. But in 2007, during the real estate crash, he lost it all and started over and rebuilt everything: relationships, a powerful network, and access to private capital. Mitch came back strong, building international real estate operations backed by over $2 million in private lending funds. Today, Mitch and his wife, Monique, are true digital nomads, living and working in places like Medellín, Lima, Buenos Aires, Santiago, and Playa del Carmen, all while continuing to invest in real estate. So, if you've ever wondered, can you really build a real estate business without being tied to one place? And how do you actually fund deals while abroad? Let's get into it. Over to you, Mitch. And let me ask you to introduce yourself a little bit more. Tell me a bit about your journey in real estate.
Absolutely. Debbie, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I could talk about this all day and all night, and oftentimes I do. And so let me make a few adjustments. I want to make sure that everybody is clear on the fact that I personally, by myself, did not do any of those things. My wife and I have been together 38 years, and we got into real estate together in 1999 and built that portfolio together and suffered the consequences of the Great Recession together. And we are working together to this day, So I didn't do that by myself. But
Yeah.
yes, we are living the digital nomad life. We're both actually engineers by training. We met way back when, 38 years ago in AT&T and their Bell Labs division as engineers, and fell in love and decided that we would create a family together. This was back in New Jersey. And then we ultimately made our way to Atlanta, Georgia, which is where we started our real estate investing company. And it's been an incredible adventure. We love what we do. We love working with real estate. Extensive use of private money since the very beginning, and we now get to use our experiences with private money to lend to other people who might need funding, to receive funding from folks who have money, and to do more deals. And that keeps us busy, and we are just so grateful that we can do what we do from anywhere in the world. And happy to talk about it.
I think it's exciting. I love travel. So when I met Mitch, my whole thought of getting him into this podcast was, oh, let's talk about real estate investing. And then he told me about his traveling and where he was right now. And I was like, oh, you've got to talk to the audience about this because a majority of real estate investors when I speak to them, what's their why behind real estate investing is eventually to have that lifestyle freedom where they can travel and see the world. That their full time jobs, they can't just pick up and go wherever they want to. Tell us where you are right now.
Right now, I'm on the rooftop. I wish I could turn my camera around. If I could get up, I'd show you the view from here. I'm looking at the Caribbean, right into Cozumel. I'm in Playa del Carmen in Mexico, which is right on the Caribbean coast of Mexico. It's the Mayan Riviera. Weather is beautiful. People are friendly. It is gorgeous, looking at blue pretty much wherever I look. And so I see the cruise ships coming in on a regular basis and heading back out. So yeah, we've been here for several months. We just actually got back here from being in the US for about 5 days. We needed to reset our visa, which we did. So we have another 6 months that we can stay here in the country. We'll probably be here for at least another 2 months. Then it starts to get a bit too hot here. So we'll flee Playa and find some other place around the world that's not quite as hot but not freezing cold. We say we don't do cold anymore. We're old enough now that we don't other that we don't like.
So, what inspired you to do this?
Yeah, it's a great question. In 19, in 2021, Nick and I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, because Tulsa happens to have a program. In fact, this may be interesting to you for you to read it for your listeners. They have a digital nomad program called Tulsa Remote, where they invite digital nomads to come to Tulsa for a year, and they will pay you $10,000 to experience Tulsa. They're gambling that you will love Tulsa so much that you'll stay. And last I checked, the statistics were about 75, 80% of the people who go through the program do end up staying in Tulsa. So it's a pretty good bet from their perspective. But we were doing Tulsa Remote 2021, 2022. And in December 2022, it just so happened to hit minus 27 Fahrenheit. I know your listeners are, many of them are Canadian, but that's super cold. Minus, just to be clear, 27 Fahrenheit. And so Monique turned to me and said, "Wait a minute, we could be anywhere in the world. Why are we freezing here in Tulsa?" And she was right. So it so happened that a friend of ours that was actually in Tulsa was herself fleeing the cold weather to someplace else. And she said she was going to Medellin, Colombia. We'd never been to Colombia. And so we said, "Hey, is it warm there?" She said, "Yes." And we said, "Can we follow you out there?" And she said, "Sure." So she went out, and about a week later, we showed up in Colombia, expecting to stay just long enough to weather the winter in Tulsa, then head back. Well, the 6 weeks that we were planning to be there turned into 6 months. And we absolutely loved Colombia. Loved it. And so we started looking around and thinking, hey, this international living is pretty cool. Where else can we go? So we stayed in Colombia for 6 months, and then when we left Colombia, we went to, I think, Lima, Peru. We've been to a bunch of places throughout South and Central America, but we have not been back to the U.S. since December. Well, for the long term, since December of 2022. So we have been doing the digital nomad thing for now years ish, and we absolutely love it.
What are some of the negatives?
So It's, and I tell people this all the time. This lifestyle isn't for everyone. However, I do believe everyone should sample it at least once in their lives, just to see if it suits them. Because while it's not for everyone, I think seeing the world is a part of education. It's a part of being a fully formed human being. I think it's hard to really appreciate the world that we live in without traveling to other countries and seeing how other people do things that we do here, or that you guys do there. So I believe I'm a firm believer in using travel as a learning tool to expand your scope. What we do is on the extreme end in that we don't have a home. People say, well, when are you going home? And we're like, we have no, wherever we happen to be is home. There's no home for us to go back to. We sold our personal residence at the same time we sold the bulk of our rental portfolio back in 2018. So we don't have a home in the US any longer. We bounce from country to country outside of the US. And every now and then we have to come back to run errands and get things done. But we don't have any place to go back to. So this is it for us. And that is, I recognize, an extreme version of this, but I think a lot of people could certainly handle the something in the middle, maybe a month or so out of every year, a couple of months out of a year to spend some time in a new country, experiencing that country. This kind of travel aligns with your goals as a person and as a business person, then the negatives are hard to find, honestly, because you get to decide how long you're going to be there. You get to decide, you know, some people want the luxury experience. Some people want the local experience. We prefer, since we typically are in country for an extended period of time, we tend to settle toward the local experience because A, it's a lot less expensive and it's a bit more authentic. The last thing we want to do is come to Mexico and spend our time with a bunch of Americans. We could do that back in the US. So our preference is to be where the locals are, eat where the locals eat, shop where the locals shop, etc. So honestly, I haven't found any major negative, and maybe I just don't see them because I love this lifestyle so much. But because we get to have the opportunity to travel back when we need to, I don't miss being back. But when we do miss being back, we just go back. With technology like video conferencing and such, I get to see my family and talk to them on a regular basis, even if I don't get to touch them face to face. So I don't really miss that. And again, both Monique and I worked for AT&T. So I remember 20, 30 years ago when a long distance video call like this would have cost an arm and a leg. These days we hop on Zoom and it's effectively free. And so there's less of an excuse or concern for me about getting a chance to connect with and see my people.
Mhm.
And the I will say this, the concerns that a lot of people have around travel, if I could just take a minute to address those,
Address it,
because
please.
I have these I get these from our family members and I get these from friends as well. The dialogue that goes on in the background that any place other than the US is inherently unsafe is a false dialogue, entirely false. Not to say that there aren't unsafe places out there in the world, but I am originally from New York City. I was born in the Bronx. Monique was born in Brooklyn. So we know what bad neighborhoods look like. We understand what crime looks like. We understand the importance of being aware of your surroundings and so forth. And yet, honestly, I feel way safer here in Playa del Carmen than I would in any major city in the United States. Monique can walk down the street at 2 o'clock in the morning and I can sleep like a baby knowing that she's not going to have any issues. And again, I can't say that about Tulsa. I certainly can't say that about New York. So I would urge people to ignore or at least suppress the dialogue that they might hear from friends and family if they start to consider leaving the country for a long time or for just a short period of time, that they shouldn't do it because of safety concerns. Are there unsafe places in Playa del Carmen? I'm sure there are. But the vast majority of the areas that we, even us tourists who are willing to be a bit more experimental and travel into the less touristy spots, the odds of something bad happening here are much, much lower than they are in the United States. And probably the same is true for Canada. So the reason, as I mentioned before, that I urge people to see it for themselves is because until you see it, it all sounds scary. Once you get out there and you see it for yourself and you relax a little bit, you'll realize that it's not this horrible, dangerous environment that we're told. And so, at least in the U.S., that we're told that every place else is unsafe, that the level of services that are available are substandard, that everything is better in the U.S., and that's just my experience is that that is not true. It is every country has its own benefits and its own assets and liabilities, and the U.S. is no different. There's some things that they're very good at, some things that they're not so good at. But from a safety standpoint, my experience has been in cities like Playa del Carmen and Cancun and Mexico City and San Miguel de Allende, we have not had any concerns around safety. It's not a blanket statement that says all of Mexico is safe, but people shouldn't assume that it's less safe here than their hometown if their hometown is a major city. If you're from Chicago or New York, you're going to do just fine in Playa. You're not going to be any more at risk here than you all already are in the US. And just as a cherry on top, what you don't have here, and I don't want to get political, but you don't have, frankly, sadly to say it, or happily to say it, you don't have the random shootings, mass shootings that you have back in the US. It's super rare because they don't have guns here. The police have it, and that's pretty much it. So you don't have the same kind of situation where people are being killed by the dozens. If there is violence, it's typically fairly small. Is there cartel violence? Yeah, but it's typically gang member on gang member. They're smart enough to not mess with the tourists because that's how they butter their bread. So there's not, and they don't do that typically in these cities, in these tourist cities. So you're not going to have my experience is that we have not had, we've been here for several months. We've not had any issues. We were in Colombia for 6 months at that initial period, no issues whatsoever. Same thing. She could walk down the street 3 o'clock in the morning. No one would bother her. Well, I don't want to say that no one ever gets mugged or robbed or whatever. I'm saying that the incidents, the rate of incidents in those countries is lower than, significantly lower than what people in any major city in the US is already dealing with.
And when we spoke offline, there was something else we discussed. That in Western fast-paced world, we're so stressed. They were so aggressive. You tell us a bit about the scenario in Colombia about the traffic.
Yeah. So because I'm from New York and I learned how to drive in New York City, I've seen traffic with a capital T. I've seen bumper to bumper midtown traffic. I've driven through that, and it can be harrowing and stressful. Absolutely. Well, when we first came to Colombia, I saw with my own two eyes the exact same situation, exact same number of cars, square meter, whatever, packed in. But on top of that, because you see that in New York, on top of that, you'd have these motorcycles zipping in between the cars, which we didn't have, we don't typically have in the US, and of course, pedestrians and so forth, and bicycles. And yet, in the 6 months we were there, actually, since we've been there, we've been back several times, I have never seen a single act of road rage ever, actually, in any of the countries we've been. That is, and it wasn't until like the second or third country that I realized, I think I might have shared this with you, Debbie, that it saddened me to have to acknowledge that it wasn't so much that these countries are so unique, it's that the US is so off the charts crazy with the stress and the yelling and the screaming that people like me who were only in the US thought that that was normal. And it wasn't until I spent time in Colombia, spent time in Peru, spent time in Argentina, and I realized that's just us. It's not everywhere else. You have the same traffic, you have the same bumper to bumper, you have the same traffic jams, you have the same stuff, but you don't have people jumping out of their car and beating each other up or grabbing their guns and shooting at each other. No one's flipping anybody off, no one's yelling and screaming. You have none of that. And it's so much so that I thought it was an act just for my benefit. And I waited for 6 months for it to crack, and it never did. And I realized that I'm the weirdo, that my upbringing in New York has worked me to think that that's normal and that this is impossible. And this is possible everywhere. So now I'm reminded that this we could have it like this in the US, but we don't. But for a variety of reasons, we don't have it. But the tension level, the stress level in these countries is so much lower. It is, I mean, in Playa is a beach town. It's even lower here than it would be in the major cities. But it's just it's tranquilo, it's calm, it's very, very laid back. You just don't have the tension that you have in the US, and we can feel it. The minute you land in the US airport and you get down to the baggage claim and people are just jostling for space and you just feel all this tension. You don't have that. You don't have, at least I don't experience that the same way here. So for us, I joked around with some friends that US doctors could probably write prescriptions for stress relief that involve leaving the country and spending a month in Medellin. It would probably be valid because our blood pressure goes down at least 20 points when we leave US airspace and come to a place like Mexico or any of the other places we've been.
What about the other myth around healthcare? That healthcare
Ah,
isn't as good in other countries.
I think the concern, the issue that I have is that these myths are really just misguided nationalism. Things are better here than anywhere else. But how would you know if you've never been anywhere else? And so it so happened that we have two medical care stories, and I'll try to be brief. In one case, we got a quote for a colonoscopy. Needed a colonoscopy, and the quote we got was about $5,000, which is not unreasonable for a colonoscopy in the US because they have to sedate you and so forth. There's an equipment, a machine involved. Well, we got a quote in Medellin, Colombia for a colonoscopy, which she ultimately did. And it costs under $300 for the whole thing. That's not the copay. That's the cash price. You give them $300, you get a colonoscopy, you get your snapshots, we got everything that you would normally get with the colonoscopy. We got, and we were in and out. We were probably there for 2 or 3 hours. I'm ashamed to have to say this, but we had friends and family back in the US who had the nerve to ask when we told that story, they said, "Was the hospital indoors? Were they real doctors?" And I'm like, "What do you have in your mind when you imagine Colombia? It's a major metropolitan city." And, oh, by the way, I should point out that the US is not in the top 10. So the World Health Organization rates every country for medical care. We're not in the top 10 at all, the US. I think Colombia is the top 5. So Colombia is actually higher, in terms of medical care and the quality of physicians than the US. People leave the US and come to Colombia for lots of procedures, a lot of cosmetic procedures, but also a lot of serious procedures. And it's not just Colombia. There are other countries around the world that are known for medical tourism. People leave the US, they go or Canada, they leave their home country, they go to that country, they get the operation, they spend a few days enjoying themselves, and they come home and they will have spent less money with the entire trip plus the operation than they would have for the operation in their home country. So $5,000 to under $300 for a colonoscopy. And the other example I'll give is Monique got a quote for some dental work, and I think the guy said, I want to say $8,000 or something ridiculous. And so she didn't get it done there. Now, she didn't get it done there. We came to Medellin. We went to a dentist. She looked at Monique's mouth. She did the operation. I mean, did the examination. And she said, "Yeah, I can get this done for about $250." Which
Wow.
she did. She did, and she's since become our dentist. So we go there for tooth cleaning and all that stuff. But and again, it's not unique to her. My bigger point is the healthcare situation. I don't think anyone's surprised to hear that the healthcare situation in the West is broken, badly broken, and in the U.S. in particular, you're spending 100 times more for the service than you probably should in other places. But again, if you don't can if you're told that the US is the only safe place to get these operations because all these other countries, the doctors aren't licensed and they're not very good and they're going to be risky, then people just stay in the US. Well, if you do the actual research, you'll discover that most of those doctors are higher rated than the doctors in the US, that there are plenty of people who leave the country and come to these countries, get wonderful service, get a great operation done, and head back and spend a fraction. So I just urge people to not take what they're told on face value and instead do a little research on their own and discover for themselves what they could what they could save. And I know that there are tons of people back in the US and probably in Canada as well who aren't getting, although you guys have socialized medicine, so it may not be as bad,
Mhm.
but in the US, I know the people who aren't getting operations because they just can't afford it. And of course, that's the worst scenario because you know you need the surgery or you know you need the medical intervention and you don't do it for cost purposes. If that thing were a fraction of the cost, you might consider doing it. If you add up the cost of going to the country, getting it done, and coming back, it may be surprisingly less than what you were told. So I would urge people to just test it for themselves and see what they think, see what they discover.
So in Canada, it's not the cost, it's the wait.
Got it. Got
So
it.
you could be waiting like 2 years or you could die in that time to get an
Right. Right.
operation. So
And so
that's the issue here now, it's the wait times.
yeah, and because this again, I don't want to get too deep into this because obviously I'm not a doctor. I don't want to give medical advice, but
Mhm.
my only suggestion for people is to not assume that the situation that you're in from a medical standpoint is unsolvable. I'm willing to bet that there's someone who's solved it, and it may not be Colombia, it may be some other country, but this whole notion of looking at the entire globe as a healthcare marketplace and picking and choosing the best provider of the service that you need based on their quality and not the country is probably a smarter way to go. And it's never been easier
Yeah.
uh, than now to do that. And if you're like me and or like us, and you can continue to work while you're there, because we don't. I mean, people ask, are you on vacation? We're here in this effectively this resort, so we see people coming and going, and they look at me. I'm sitting up here with my computer connected to the Wi-Fi and doing work, and they're like, "Oh, poor guy, you have to work during your vacation." And I want to tell them, "Sorry, dude, I'm not here on vacation. I live here. So whenever I want to stop doing this and head to the beach, I can do it. But I'm not on vacation. This is my life, and so I'm here for the entire time. And yes, I absolutely do work, but it'd be kind of cool if you were going to have to travel to a country to get a medical operation, to be doing work while you're there and on the way back, and being able to make money while you're traveling. You're not just in limbo. You actually can be productive.
And so that kind of leads into like real estate investing, because what you're doing. So tell us a bit about why real estate investing works so well for being a digital nomad.
So the way we do it works well because it doesn't require us to personally be hands-on with the property. So Monique and I got started investing in 1999, but we didn't start lending actively, being a private lender for other people's real estate deals until about 2021 ish. We started really focusing on the lending side. So if you're a rehabber and you're going to buy a property and fix it up and sell it, that you might, at least the first few, you might want to do while you're in country. But once you've got a repeatable system for getting that done, maybe you've got general contractors that are on the ground that can get stuff done. There's really no need for you to physically be there to see the house, as long as somebody on your team can see it, as long as someone on your team is managing the the work of the contractors, then there's really no need for you to physically be where the property is. We have bought and sold properties that we never saw ever. So we had been doing that within the US for years. And so the distance between that and what we're doing now is zero. We have here in Mexico, we have access to Wi-Fi, so I can hop on WhatsApp and Google Voice and make phone calls. If you call me, you'll travel through the internet to my Google Voice number. I can do a Zoom call whenever I need to. I have all the tools that I need to do what I do are available, can fit in my backpack, my computer, my phone, and a few cables, and maybe a better lighting source. I can see that I can use one right now, but that's pretty much all I need. And I don't, and of course, power and Wi-Fi wherever I happen to land. And since most of these countries, especially now that they're starting to appreciate the digital nomad audience, and a lot of countries are starting to align themselves to make it easy for digital nomads to operate in the country because we bring dollars. If you can get good Wi-Fi, any Starbucks, for example, anywhere in the world typically has its own Wi-Fi. You can walk into a Starbucks, and I can be walking to a Starbucks and be productive within 10 minutes. I can connect to the Wi-Fi and start doing work. So it is really, really easy to do what I do from anywhere in the world because I don't need a lot to do it. Now, if we're lending, which is the bulk of what we do these days, even more so, right? Because the borrower, the operator, the person who's borrowing the money, they need to be close to the property because they're going to be doing the work. But I don't need to see that. Just like the bank, Wells Fargo doesn't need to see your house to give you a mortgage. They just need to know that it's there and for you to sign the appropriate documents to protect them when they give you the loan. So we have had numerous closings where I'm represented at the closing, although I don't have to physically be there. If I did have to sign something, they can either have me electronically sign or e-sign the document, or they can send them to me in advance. I can fill them out and send them back. There are a variety of ways we can handle documentation, but for the most part, in 2026, you can easily close a transaction without ever setting foot in a in an attorney's office. And so if I can do that, then that would be the last hurdle for me is closings. Closings I can do and have done.
And these days, a lot of lawyers are allowing virtual because they will
Yep.
validate you through a Zoom call, and then you can
Exactly.
digitally sign. So there are
Exactly.
more of those happening with notaries and lawyers. So what
Yep.
are the best cities that you found so far and countries for digital nomads, and why?
Great question. So let me first say that because majority of my clients who are the majority of the customers, the people who use the funds that we lend, are doing so in the US. Our focus is to try to stay within the time zones that the US offers. So from Pacific on one coast to Eastern on the other coast, we try to stay in countries that are lined up with those time zones. Otherwise, we'd be working at 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to get stuff done for people for whom it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the US. So that means that our preference right now is for countries in Central and South America and Mexico. So we spent a lot of time in Mexico because Mexico just makes it so easy. As a US citizen, you get 6 months, so you can get up to 6 months visa with a US passport. I'm not sure what it is for a Canadian passport, but I think it's probably similar.
It's the same, yeah.
And same way. And so we have experienced, of course, Playa del Carmen, which is where we are right now, Cozumel, which is about an hour north of here, but it has the major airport, a city called San Miguel de Allende, which is up in the mountains, not too far from Mexico City. Beautiful city, one of the oldest cities in Mexico, actually the home of the Mexican Revolution. Lots of expats there from all over. Beautiful cobblestone. It's everything you can think about when you think about the nice, quaint, traditional city here in the U.S. is San Miguel. We've spent some time in Mexico City, which is enormous. It's 3 times the size population-wise of New York, and New York is already overwhelming. So it's like 24, 25 million people, but it is got all the energy of New York, and it's huge, and it's the city. And we've been there. We've spent some time in Guadalajara, so places throughout Mexico. As far as Central America, we have sampled Panama and Costa Rica, enjoyed them both. And South America, we have so far done, of course, Colombia, Chile, Peru. We've spent quite some time there, Argentina. And again, we're not opposed to any of these South American or Central American countries. It's just that our preference is, and my recommendation to people who are contemplating this kind of shift is to go where your friends are or have been, so that the ideal scenario is that, like we did when we first went to Colombia, we followed our friends,
Mhm.
and so she could tell us, and she did, what restaurants to eat at, what restaurants not to eat at, what to do when you get to the airport, what to not do at the airport, all the pitfalls and special suggestions that you could possibly make, she made on our behalf. And it made our transition so much easier having a knowledgeable, friendly expert to be able to guide us as we got acclimated. And so that's what we recommend people do. We try to be that for our family. If our family and friends come here or come wherever we are, we will try to be that welcome committee and explain to them what parts of the of city that you should visit, what parts you shouldn't. Where should you get your if you're going to do an Airbnb or a hotel? Where should you get that? Where shouldn't you get that? So all that information. My recommendation is find someone that you know, ideally who knows you,
Mm.
who's already there or who's been there recently. And there are also lots of online communities of folks in all of these cities are usually large expat communities. We met tons, even here, we meet tons of Canadians and US folks that are here on vacation, some of whom have retired here. So there's a pretty healthy community of folks who will happily tell you all the great places to visit and all the things to see and all the places to eat at. So there's tons of resources, both online and face to face, that you can access if you're contemplating a particular city. I wish I could say more about eastern cities. We would love on our list is to see places like Vietnam and Thailand and South Korea, Singapore and such. We just because those would involve a major time zone shift, we haven't tried to stay there for any length of time. We spent a little
Yes.
bit of time in Hong Kong 20 years ago and we loved it. So we know we'd love to go back. It's just that I would prefer not to have to try to work at 2 o'clock in the morning. And since I'm still working, that would be a little harder for me. So right now we're gonna exhaust ourselves with the Central America, South America, and Mexico. We still have a good 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 countries in the Americas that we haven't visited yet. So we still have a little ways to go, but we have plenty of time, and we hope, and we're goal is to try to see as much as we possibly can. Same thing for Europe. I know that there are plenty of people who love Portugal and Spain. We have friends that are there. So if we ever did go, we would certainly
Mhm.
reach out to our friends but that's how we like to travel. We like to use our friends and their recommendations as ways to get up to speed quickly.
So if you plan to go to Portugal, especially around Porto area, I do have a realtor there that's was, lived in the US and left about 25 years ago. And he would be
Nice.
that person similar to what
Yep.
you were talking about. He took us to like the best restaurants. So he would be able to guide you. So if you ever need that, let me know. Because you're moving all the time, there's not a you can't be taking your whole kitchen sink with you. So what are some essential gear, tools, and systems that digital nomads should have?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So as I mentioned before, because of how we operate, almost everything that we do is online. We talk online, we interact online. Most of my meetings are through Zoom or through Google Meet. So obviously having a powerful laptop or tablet that has a decent battery life is essential in my opinion because it's hard. Obviously, you're not taking around a major, massive computer, so it's your tablet or your laptop, and so that is an essential. These days, so much can exist in the cloud that I try to push as much off of my actual device and into the cloud as I possibly can. So that if my computer were damaged, I could get a new computer and just log into my existing accounts, log into my Gmail, log into my other accounts. So I could get up to speed very quickly. I don't have a lot of stuff kept on my device, on my local device. I know some people are anxious about having all this stuff in the cloud, but as a digital nomad, since to your point, you can't drag it around with you, or you really shouldn't be dragging it around with you. It's the cloud or some alternative that would probably not be as easy. So for us, that's an important part. Obviously, we have a decent, not the latest phone, but we have a smartphone that we use because sometimes you're not able to get to your computer. You still need to be able to get stuff done. I can do business from my phone. I can take Zoom calls. I can have conversations. So a good phone. And as far as systems, I think our there are a bunch of systems for things like how do you find places to live. Uh, one of between my wife and I, we divvied up the responsibilities. She typically handles all of the travel stuff, thank goodness. So I just show up and carry a bag or two, and that's my role. So if we ever do this again and we have her on, she can walk you through the process that we use for arranging for travel. But one of the hacks that I know we use when we're traveling to a brand new place is I know a lot of people obsess and stress over booking their place to stay. And what we have learned to do is instead of trying, if we're going to be there, if we plan to be there for a month, then we won't try to book our 1 month place in advance. We'll just book a place for a week, sometimes for a few days, because a lot of these places you want to see with your own eyes as opposed to relying on the photos in say Airbnb or these other platforms because they can be very different than the reality. And so but you have to have some place to land and stay in the short term, so we will typically book something for the first week, and then if we like it, then we'll reach out to the host and try to arrange to extend for the full month if that's available. But if we don't, then we're not locked into a place that we absolutely hate for an entire month, and then we can kind of springboard into other places. Obviously, there's some benefit to being able to at some point transition off platform because doing things through the Airbnb platform, this costs more because you're
It's
paying
expensive.
for all
Yes.
that extra overhead. But once you've established a relationship with the locals, or if you have friends that have established a relationship with the locals, then and that's the benefit of having friends that are local is that they already have a relationship with their landlord. And if the landlord has vacancies, then you can kind of piggyback off of their reputation and go straight to the source and not have to pay the premium that you pay through these
Online
services like
platform.
Airbnb on the platform. So you can do things off platform, but you can do it safely because on the other hand, you want to save money, but you don't want to work with someone who might be scamming you. And so it's best to be local and to have a local connection that you know is legit before you start spending tons of money. Because the downside of the platform is that, I mean, the downside of not using the platform is that they won't protect you if you go outside of the platform. So if you work with directly with the landlord and they take advantage of you, you don't have Airbnb to navigate the
Protect you.
and protect you. So that there are specific systems, but I'll be honest, Monique would be a better person to speak to those. But they those do exist for us. We have gotten to the point now where we can pretty much settle in to a new place. It used to be weeks to settle it, and then it became days, and now it's in about an hour or two. We can pretty much settle into a place. But we have a bit of an advantage. I think I mentioned to you before that we sold our primary residence back in 2018, and we did the digital nomad thing domestically for about 5 years
Right.
before we left the country. So we had already pared down significantly. As I mentioned, we just got back from Atlanta yesterday. We were there for 5 days doing a border run to reset our visa. And this is the first time ever we traveled to the US from Mexico with no check bag and no carry on, just two backpacks. And Monique wasn't sure we could do it. And I figured, let's give it a shot. And we actually successfully did it. So we didn't have any bags to check. We could just hop off the plane and leave. And it was wonderfully freeing to be able to have that kind of flexibility. So, and even then, we observed that there were things we could do better, that there were a lot of things we packed that we didn't.
You don't end up using. I always think I've pared down and I still don't use half the stuff I took.
Yep, exactly right. So we've started to make notes of what we perennially think we're going to need that we end up not needing and just leave it behind. And in our so far it's gotten smaller and smaller and smaller so that we can now we can with this backpack on our backs we can travel anywhere at least for 3 4 5 days. Yeah.
That's super. What other, before we wrap up, what other insider tips could you share with us or strategies about creating that incredible digital nomad lifestyle and experience?
I will share with people that there are communities of digital nomads out there on social media. I'm part of one that's on LinkedIn. It's actually pretty sizable. I think it's 100 some odd thousand people, which is pretty good size for online. So I urge people not just to focus on the country that they're looking to travel to, but just digital nomads in general. My experience is that these are very, not surprisingly, very worldly and well traveled and friendly people. And we have had, I'll say that our resilience has increased dramatically since we've started traveling. The things that can throw us off our game, that list has gotten much, much lower. We've gotten a lot more creative about how work gets done. The big challenge here in Mexico, it's not a huge challenge, at least here in Playa, is every now and then, maybe once a month, there'll be a power outage.
Hmm.
Our side of the street will be without power for 3, 4, 5 hours. But there may be other parts of the city that have power. So you just have to figure out, who's got power, who doesn't, and then we'll kind of migrate to the places that have powers. Uh, Being part of a community, in my opinion, is the best way to protect yourself against change and disruption because we digital nomads are a fairly hardy bunch and we are creative in our problem solving and we like to talk and interact and network. So if you're not sure about a country or if you want to ask the same questions that you asked me, I would urge people to be asking in these communities so that they can get the answers that are specific to the cities that they're interested in and have all the resources that are out there because there are a ton of resources. There are countries that specifically have programs, like I mentioned, that's in Tulsa for digital nomads. And so if you're clued into those programs, you can in some cases get perks and benefits that you wouldn't even be aware of if someone didn't share those with you.
And I know there are also online groups instead of Airbnbs. There are ones specifically for digital nomads. So there are
Yep.
accommodation ones that are out there. There are also Facebook groups that usually start with moving to or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
where people are asking questions and you can go in and ask questions of others and people share their experiences.
Yeah.
So
And the same questions that you asked about gear and systems, you can ask those questions in these communities and people can give you their perspective because it changes and evolves over time. But
mhm.
it's a topic that most digital nomads love talking about. The one challenge that we don't have, because it's just the two of us, is we're not doing this with a family, but we have seen digital nomad families, husband, wife, couple of kids out there bouncing around the world, traveling. And I think that's wonderful. I mean, as a kid, to be able to see, you know, tons of countries and get a chance to experience different languages and different cultures when you're at an age when you're absorbing everything has got to be an incredible experience and going to serve them well as they get older. I remind my friends who have kids and our nieces and nephews that the future is global. The future is out there, and those people who haven't built a global network are going to be at a disadvantage compared to people who are actively building that network today. We know people now from every country we meet, every country we go to, we meet people. Many of whom are real estate investors. Some of them are just regular business people, but we meet people who are doing cool things and we make them part of our network and we talk about what we're doing. I mean, we bring ourselves everywhere we go. So we talk about real estate, we talk about travel with everyone. I know that there's starting to be some conferences out there just for digital nomads, some around the world. Bunches of them will get together and talk about stuff like that. So it's becoming more and more of a thing as people are able to afford it, and I think that's wonderful.
I agree with you when it comes to families. I know a lot of people are afraid to travel with children, but I had mine on the plane from 6 months
Wow,
and
that's
it's
awesome.
not an issue. And kids are so resilient and they pick
They
up
are.
languages so much faster than we do as adults.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it is actually not hard as people think it is to travel and to do this with children.
Yeah, I've seen people doing it, and it's. I can only imagine what those kids are going to be like because they're experiencing things that there's some grown
They're going to be
adults that don't.
incredible. The number of languages they'll speak and their
Yep.
tolerance for others.
In
Is
their network. It's
just
going to
yep.
be fantastic. And so I do believe, even if you're not sure about doing it for yourself, if only for your kids, consider the possibility that it could be it will be an educational opportunity for you and your kids will be at a disadvantage compared to other kids if they don't get a chance to see a piece of the world before they get out there and have to compete in it.
I remember when my son was 19 at the time and he went backpacking through Europe. And he messaged me saying, Mom, this is incredible. This is so much better than sitting in a classroom and learning about the architecture and the arts and what happened with the Black Plague and all these things when he's actually seeing the skulls in
Yeah,
Paris.
yeah,
So it creates more interest. It creates like when you can feel and touch and actually see it much better than learning theoretically from a book.
absolutely, absolutely. And that's true for adults as well as kids, but particularly for kids, because as the world evolves to become more global, in 20, 30 years, it's going to be assumed that you've done this kind of stuff. And if you haven't, you're going to be at a disadvantage. It's still pretty new. I meet lots of people who have never left the country, and it's not a question of good or bad. It's just if you want to, if you're toying with the idea of traveling outside of the U.S., I think you'd probably agree with me, Debbie, that there's never been a better time than now to do it. It is easier, it is cheaper, it is more accessible. There's so many more resources, and so if you're
Yeah,
ever
so
gonna do
many
it.
countries are, like you said before, open to this, that they offer
Yes,
digital nomad visas, and there's some countries are even paying you to come
yes,
and be there
yes,
and have that experience. So it really
absolutely.
is something that people should try out. And as a real estate investor, if this is the direction you would like to go, then start gearing your strategy in that direction. Maybe you need to change your strategy. Maybe you need to build a stronger team. Maybe you need to build systems and processes in place to support you being away. But it is definitely possible. So, and it's not a dream, it's a goal, and you can start building towards that. Like you said, Mitch, there are so many different ways, even as an active investor, especially as a passive investor, but even as an active investor, if you've got a strong team, they understand what you're looking for in properties. You can FaceTime walk through with your GC and your
Yep.
realtor and make decisions. I had just started in real estate investing. I bought turnkey properties and I never saw it. I bought it, never saw it, sold it, never saw it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you, and that was still within Canada. So if I can do it within Canada, then you can do it
You do it anywhere.
wherever. But it was still too far for me to get there. And
One thing I want just to point out that we've talked a lot about the opportunities for investors who travel outside of the country and yet do deals back home. There's also the other, we haven't talked about the flip side, which we probably don't have time to cover now, but a lot of these countries have their own developing real estate market. They're building like crazy in Lima, Peru.
with
They're building
lower
like
cash
crazy.
in.
With lower cash in. They have their own unique challenges, but there are, for example, in Mexico, there is no private money market. If you don't have the cash yourself to do the deal or a partner that's funding you, there's no there aren't private money lenders as such. There could be, and I'm busy working to see if I can help make that happen. But my point is that these each of these countries has each of these cities in these countries has its own real estate market. The real estate math is independent of country. Cash on cash return and cash flow, those things, the formulas don't change based on what country you're in. And so when you understand how to do deals and analyze deals in the country that you're in, that same expertise applies to these other countries. The same similar deal structures apply. So you can take some of your knowledge and wisdom and apply it to where you happen to be and see if there's an opportunity for you to do stuff there. Because a lot of these countries are growing like crazy. Their population is, in some cases, not as wealthy as a lot of Canada and the US. And so a lot of
Mhm.
those buildings are going to be occupied by expats leaving Canada and the
Yeah,
US, other
looking to have
countries.
their money go further.
Yep, and a lot of people are
Mhm.
considering retiring in these countries, and so there's a whole play there. I mean, there's tons of opportunities. So I would urge people to keep their eyes open and their minds open about opportunities, not just in their local markets that they're comfortable with, but these new markets that might require a little bit of extra exposure. And you really wouldn't want to invest in those markets until you've seen it with your own eyes and shaken some hands and kissed some babies, as I say, to see what those markets are like. But I think getting out there is the first step towards seeing what opportunities are there.
So, Mitch, just to wrap up, how can people contact you?
Yeah. The best way to contact me, my favorite way for people to contact me is through LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn profile. I'm Mitch Messer, or at Mitch Messer. So I'm easy to find there. I'm also on Instagram, but I find that most of the people that, since I'm in the money business, most of the people who have money are on LinkedIn. They're not
Yes,
on
they're
Instagram,
not
but they're most,
swiping
yeah,
mindlessly.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so the easiest way to find me is to connect with me is to find me on LinkedIn and just reach out because I'll connect to any legitimate person, any legitimate business person who reaches out to me. I'll connect with because you never know who the next great connection is going to be and how they're going to help you move forward. And so I'll talk to and interact with anybody. So if you see me on social media and you want to connect up with me, just send me a connection request and I will almost certainly approve it. And then if you're open to it, let's have a quick 15-minute conversation and see if there are ways that we can help each other do business. I'm always looking for people who need funding. I'm always looking for people who have money who are looking to put those funds to work. And so I'm my network is what saved us when we got crushed by the Great Recession. It's the network that helped us bring us back alive and it's what sustains us to this day. And so and the bigger your network, the more effective and powerful you can be. And so I crave to connect with people and meet people and understand what their problems are and see if I can help them solve them. So yeah, by all means, reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's my preferred. You can also reach me on Instagram. I just don't check it as often. I don't have a Facebook account any longer. It got hacked like a year and a half ago, and I've given up trying to get it back. They want it apparently more than I do, so I've given up on that. But Instagram and LinkedIn, preferably LinkedIn, so for your listeners, I have a school community that I created about 2 years ago, specifically for private lenders, people who have funds to make real estate deals happen, and also the people who use those funds, who are real estate investors. We call those folks operators. But for lenders and investors, it's a community. It's not super large. and it's not super intimidating. It's intended to be nice and small and intimate, where people can talk about how private money actually works and not have to wade through the cesspool of scammers and spammers and fake lenders that you find on Facebook and Instagram and all these other social media platforms. These folks are, generally speaking, carefully vetted, mostly by me, and invited personally. So it's a great community of people who help each other try to do more deals. And a lot of these folks are international. So a lot of these folks are already outside of the US trying to work deals in the US and would love to meet more US operators or US or Canadian operators. So for you, Debbie, and your actually you're already in, but for your
Mhm.
members, if they are interested, I will happily offer them a complimentary lifetime membership into the community. I'll happily cover the cost of them to participate in the community. My only provision is that they are active, that they take advantage of. It is supportive. There's no yelling. There's no screaming. There's no cute puppies and kittens. There's no Bitcoin. There's no distracting noise. It's just about real estate stuff and funding. But the the, the intention is for it to be supportive. It's where you go if you need a perspective on a deal that you're working. You're not sure how this thing works out. You have some thoughts, but you want to get a second opinion or a third opinion. You post that and get people to say what they think. So I use it myself. It's where I bring my borrowers and lenders so that we can have conversations around how private money works and how to get deals done. And we occasionally talk about deals that we could close. We talk about new opportunities. We just had a call last week about deals in Nashville. We've covered a few cities that people might want to have an express an interest in. So if your members are or your listeners are interested, they can email me. I guess I could email you, but I just need their email address so that I can send them the invitation. If they go to community is called Unfundable AF, but if they go to unfundableaf.com, it will take them to the paid version. So they don't want to do that. They want to reach out to you, Debbie, or to me so that I can send them the actual personal invitation that gets them in without having to pay.
Them know that you heard about, they heard about this through the Let's Talk Real Estate Investing podcast. And then
Yeah.
you can speak to them because I still would like you to making sure that you're vetting them, Mitch, because this is going public on YouTube. So we want to make sure that they're vetted and it's, again, we're not letting scammers in. So I think go through, if you go message Mitch on LinkedIn, let him know that you heard about this through my podcast. And then as long as you're vetted and you're good to go, then you'll get the free membership. And I'm already in there and I've already been active. It is a great group and I'm looking forward to be part of it.
Well, we love having you in there, and we would love to have your listeners in as well to get more deals done and talk about. We do talk about international travel in the community because a lot of the folks that are there are also digital nomads and traveling around. So it's not all work, or it's work, but for me, travel is work. It's all kind of
Mhm.
mixed together, so it's all part of it. So yeah, I would love to have more of your folks participating, and I would love to help us all get more deals done, which is I think gonna make everybody
That
happy.
was awesome. Just to let you know, I'm doing a follow-up interview with Mitch. So we'll come out 2 weeks after this one, where we're going to drill more into private lending and private borrowing. So Mitch will be a great resource, especially I know there are lots of Canadians out there that cannot get funding in the US, for traditional funding until they've got their corporation there more than 2 years and showing money is coming in. So Mitch would be an excellent source for you because he has people available to lend to operators working in the United States. So that this would be a great source. So we'll talk more about that in the next episode, but just a precursor to that. Thank you so much, Mitch, for being here. And to everyone listening, I'd like you to do two things, please. Hit that like button and subscribe so that you can be notified when new podcast episodes are dropped, including the one following this one with Mitch. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Debbie. It was a pleasure.